Elias Pettersson is stacking up with some of the Vancouver greats, and his milestones next season might shock you. And we have trade escalating around a guy like Tucker Poolman. That would be massive for the Vancouver Canucks going into next season and next trade deadline. We'll break all this down later on this episode. Before I start, I just want to give a shout out to the 3,661 of you guys. Seeing the community grow is just awesome. Seeing you guys enjoy the content. I think it was something of almost 1,000 subscribers in the past 28 days. So if you're enjoying this and you want to join the Canucks Digest community, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button. We'll be here all off season into next season, giving you updates from around the Canucks. Well, that let's hop straight into the first topic today, which is Elias Pettersson nearing milestone. Now, when you do look at a guy like Elias Pettersson, yes, he had a disappointing postseason, but this guy has been steady for the Canucks. You can see in the regular season, he had yet again another point per game season in 82 games, 34 goals, 55 assists for 89 points. You work your way back to just 2 seasons ago in 80 games, he had 39 goals, 63 assists for 102 points. This guy has been phenomenal for the Vancouver Canucks. During the bubble playoffs, he put up 18 points in 17 games. Yes, I know people are knocking Pettersson. Yes, I know people are mad that he had a disappointing postseason. But bringing in guys like Jake DeBrusk, Danton Hyman, these guys within the system, bringing them in to work with Pettersson should give him a bounce back here instead of having a winger like Ilya Mikheyev. Now, to get into milestones, obviously, when you look at this list, there's some all-time greats. I mean, the top of the list has Henrik Sedin, Daniel Sedin, Marcus Naslund, Trevor Linden. You work your way down to number 10, Bo Horvat, number 11, Elias Pettersson. Elias Pettersson is set to crack the top 10 in all-time scoring for the Vancouver Canucks just this next coming season. Guys like JT Miller will jump up into the top 10 maybe this season as well. And you have guys like Ryan Kessler at the bottom at number 15. But just looking at these all-time greats playing for the Vancouver Canucks, seeing Elias Pettersson ready to push a guy like Bo Horvat down, a guy like Pavel Bure, a guy like Todd Bertuzzi, just shows how well he has been for this organization, and it doesn't stop there. When you look at game-winning goals for Elias Pettersson, 32 game-winning goals is ranked 5th. Guys like Trevor Linden is one above him. We've seen PD go on a huge streak last season, cracking these game-winning goals in, and it felt like it was 20 games straight where he did it. So having a guy that's already in the top 5, maybe pushing for the top 4, maybe even the top 3 of game-winning goals for this Canucks roster is huge for him and the Canucks organization to have this kind of star power. Now, when you do look at Pettersson and you are looking at his goals, he scored 30 goals for the past 3 seasons. If he goes into next season and scores 30, he will crack the top 10 in goals. If he scores 30 assists, he will crack in the top 10 in assists as well. He's going to be in the top 10 for almost every offensive stat possible for the Canucks. And the biggest thing with this is at the age of 25, he has so much more time to play with the Canucks. So a guy like Pettersson, yes, you can kind of crap on him if you want to say for his play over the past postseason and regular season, but he's bound for a bounce back. This is a guy, as I said, that's going to bring in wingers like Jake DeBrusk to play on his wing. Maybe we see a guy like JT Miller play more minutes with Pettersson. It's up on the air who he's going to play with. Maybe it's Dakota Joshua, but he's going to come in for a bounce back, and he's going to break multiple milestones within this Canucks organization. What were your guys' thoughts on all this? What's your thoughts on milestones Pettersson's going to break? Do you think he cracks the top 3 points all time for the Canucks when it's all said and done with his career with them? Let me know down in the comments, but we'll get straight into the second topic, which is Tucker Poolman trade would be huge. Now, obviously, there's been reports just floating around on social media by insiders, by reporters, that the Vancouver Canucks are still trying to shop Tucker Poolman after last trade deadline. Now, we did have a quote, obviously, coming from a guy like Patrik Allvin at last year's trade deadline when the reporter asked him, were they shopping Tucker Poolman? He said yes, and it was a very simple answer that they are looking to move on from him. Tucker Poolman did get signed to a 4-year deal worth $10 million, which was $2.5 million AAV, just back in 2021. Now, when you're looking at the $2.5 million in AAV, like the cap hit, going in against the Canucks this season, a lot of people might look at this and say, hey, Mark, why does it matter? Tucker Poolman's going to be on LTIR for the Canucks. It's not going to affect them salary cap-wise, but this is where things get quite interesting with this contract and what the Canucks could do with the extra money. Now, when you do look at Tucker Poolman, just playing in 43 games since signing his contract. In 2021 2022, he played 40 games, dropping down to 3 games in 2022 2023. Obviously, not playing last season, and going into this year, he's not expected to play. So, the first thing I do want to point out, if the Canucks do not move on from this contract, it's not going to affect him. This cap goes against the LTIR, so it is still money they can use. But the problem with this is it's not money they can use into trade deadline with the extra cap space. So when you do look at teams they could possibly trade him to, the Ducks, the Flames, the Red Wings, who do have some players yet to be signed, Columbus, the Sharks, and Sabres are all just above the salary cap floor. When you're looking at a team like the Ducks being super close to the floor, this might be a type of player they want to take on. It's not going to be affecting them having extra roster spots, but it does give them more cap against the cap space, story, so that way they do not hit the floor. They might want to move out a guy that's worth $3 million. Bringing in a guy like Tucker Poolman would give him enough space to be able to move out a contract like that for draft picks, prospects, whatever it might be, and still be above the cap floor. Now, there are some other teams where this would be quite interesting for them, and that would be the top tier teams. Now, before I get into that, obviously there are going to be contracts where you might have to move picks out. Looking at the Canucks draft picks, they do have a first round pick for the next 3 years. They have 2 seconds over the next 3 years, and you can kind of pause and look at this if you want. But obviously, Canucks fans aren't going to want Patrik Allvin, Jim Rutherford to move out on any more draft picks or prospects, whatever it might be, to get off a contract. And I don't think it would take this to move on from a guy like Tucker Poolman. Now, when you look at the top tier teams of the top cap hits, I don't want to say the top tier teams as the Capitals, and then we're not top tier teams. But when looking at the top cap hits, you can see the team like the Washington Capitals, which I will go into a bit of a dive shortly, are above 14 million in minus cap space. You can see teams like Golden Knights 3.6, the Avalanche 1.4, and you can work your way down this as well. But this is where teams like this would greatly benefit from the Canucks trading them Tucker Poolman. A team like the Washington Capitals being 14 million over, they are going to move a guy like Nick Backstrom onto LTIR. Getting a guy like Tucker Poolman and the 9.5 million against the cap with Nick Backstrom would get them just roughly to under or just about under the salary cap. Maybe they want to move on from a guy like Nick Dowd to the Canucks as well, but things will get interesting when trading this out. The biggest thing with this is if the Canucks do move on from a guy like Tucker Poolman, they do clear up roughly 8 to 11 million of extra cap space into next year's trade deadline. Now, obviously 2.5 million against the cap right now, but as the season goes on, contracts get smaller throughout the NHL. A guy making $5 million AAV against the cap, halfway through the season, he would only be 2.5 million against the cap, as the teams already paid 50% of his contract. So getting closer to trade deadline, this 2.5 million would open up to almost 11 million. Obviously, it won't be close to 11 million, as the Canucks are still going to have a bit of overages with players getting called up, players getting sent down. But roughly $8 million in extra cap space going into next trade deadline would be a lot better than 2.5 million at the start of the season. That will not go up towards the deadline. So what's your guys' thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on Tucker Poolman going out? Would you like to see them maybe move on from a pick and go to a lower team and offer them maybe a third or fourth to the Ducks to take on from the Pullman contract? Or do you rather see them maybe look at one of the higher up teams and say to the Washington Capitals, hey, we'll take someone worth $1 million, take Tucker Poolman, we can use this player, it helps you get under the cap? What's your guys' thoughts on this? What would you trade him for? What would you spend the extra cap space on? I know Shelops has to be signed, and that's the obvious answer, but let me know down in the comments. But speaking on comments, we'll get in everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. And the comment today comes from Alexander Lee. And they say, love your videos, keep up the entertaining videos. I can't wait for next season start. It is taking too long, and I couldn't agree anymore. I feel like this offseason has taken forever. It almost feels like how long the Stanley Cup Finals took, which felt like a month, and it feels like it's still about 100 days away. But the NHL will start in about 80 days, I want to say, while I'm recording this. So it is just around the corner. Enjoy the summer. There's going to be a lot of rumors. So if you're enjoying this and you want to go leave a subscribe button, you can hit that, and then you'll be kept up to date with everything around the NHL. And while you're down there, leave a like, leave a comment. You could be featured on the next episode as comment of the day. And we'll be back tomorrow with another video. I'm trying to get through this because I'm quite sick right now, but I hope you guys are enjoying the content. But I've been your host, Mark Pye, and take care.